Hello everybody. So we are at part 4 right now. So part 4 means rigging. So the first 3 parts were just modeling. So the model is done, hopefully. We'll see, I'm not sure. And now we're going to rig the model. What does rigging mean? It means basically that you create like a skeleton for the model that will drive all the movements. So instead of moving the object that is like the hand, for example, we don't move it directly. We create some separate objects that are in the shape of like a skeleton. We attach everything to the skeleton and then we just have to move the skeleton. It has certain properties. It's much easier to animate, but you have to create it first and set everything perfectly up, especially with the wings. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So it's probably not that long, so we'll get right through it. Hopefully it's enjoyable. Let's start. Okay, so as you see, this is the rig, how it looks like. It's made out of like bones. These are bones basically, and they have little balls or spheres that are the hinges or the joints. And you place them where the arms and all the body parts are. You align them so that they match, so that basically the joints are where the object joints or the model joints are, so they are perfectly aligned. So that's one thing that you have to do, as you see for the hand, for example. And yeah, so that's the first thing. You create all the main parts of the skeleton or the rig, and you align them with your model so that everything is perfectly aligned. So when you rotate something, it rotates actually around the proper model joint. And so you have basically the head, the neck, you have the torso, you have the stomach, you have the upper and lower arm. Especially for the cannon, it's super easy because it's just upper and lower arm and that's it, no hand. There I'm actually adjusting something to the model. So as I said, the model is never really finished. And yeah, so creating the rig is not that difficult, but making it work properly is a little bit more challenging because you want to have it as easy as possible to move it later on, to animate, and not work with parts that don't move accordingly. So one thing that is very cool is it's called IK rigging. So there are two principles of rigging. That's FK and IK, as far as I know. So FK means forward kinematics, IK means inverse kinematics. So FK is like if you have like your arm and you move it like this, then you move your hand like this, then you move your upper arm like this, and you place it where it has to be. That's the simple one. The other one is IK, which means that you take the hand and that's basically your controller, and you place it somewhere and everything else moves according to some certain rules. So in the end, that's much easier for hands and feet because I just put the hand somewhere and the arm is moving just with the hand according to maybe some rules, that it doesn't bend to the other side and things like that. So these are some rules that you have to set up first, and that's what I'm doing here. So here you can see, for example, I'm creating an IK for the foot. So when I move the foot, the knee bends. So the knee bends in the right direction. And I also have, you see this little triangle on the left. That's a object that points to where the knee should bend. So so that the knee doesn't bend like backwards. So it points always to this object, where the object is. So that's what I'm doing right now. So creating the rig is super easy. It's not that big of a deal, but attaching all the objects to it, it's okay. It's still not that difficult, but setting up rules for how all those small parts and especially mechanical parts should move, that's a little bit tricky because they sometimes don't want to move as they should. So for the feet, it's pretty straightforward. It's not that easy, but as you see, the knee doesn't want to bend in the right direction because the hinge is there, and the hinge has a certain mechanic to it that it moves, that some parts move in a different direction than other parts. So I made it a little bit more too complicated for me. In the end, it worked out pretty well, but I struggled a lot to making it work properly. So so some parts of the joint, of the knee joint or the hinge, should just rotate, but they aren't allowed to rotate like this or like this, just like this, if this makes sense. And other parts again are just for this motion. So it was a little bit tricky. Also the hip was also like this, where you have the big hip like wheel, and it's just allowed to rotate like this. But other parts that are attached to the wheel are just allowed to move on this side. So in the end, you create like this and this motion. And this was my first like proper rig, so it was a little bit difficult for me. Also with the foot right now, well, now you can see, yeah, the foot. I wanted to make the foot like work properly, like when the heel lifts, the toes still stay on the ground and everything. But it was in the end too complicated because the feet are barely visible in the video, and it made it way too difficult to work with it. So in the end, I scrapped it and made it super easy and FK rig. But the toes, the whole foot is still an IK, but the toes are FK. Also you see the pistons should work properly, so I try to make them also with the bones, with the rig, and that's how you mostly do it. But it also didn't work properly with my legs, so in the end I just cheated a little bit, because they are barely visible in the video, and I thought, okay, that's too complicated. I just made them basically stretch. So don't tell anybody, because so that's it's a little bit cheated. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. That's the thing that I learned from this project. One big thing: if nobody notices it, then it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter if you did it properly or not, because nobody cares in the end. The story is the main thing. What you see is what you focus on is the main thing, and that's it. If something doesn't really work properly and you don't recognize it, then it doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's also here with the shoulder pads. I wanted to rig them properly, so when the upper arm moves forward, that they don't intersect. So the shoulder pad had to rotate backwards, and I wanted to set them, like combine them together, so that one system is steering the other one. It also didn't work. As I said, that's my first really proper animated character, so in the end I animated the shoulder pads manually, because they just have to rotate like 2 or 3 times in the whole video, and you don't even really see it. So that really didn't matter. What was much more tricky were the hands, because for some reason I decided to add some details here on knuckles, some little mechanical pistons, and they had to properly work when he closes his fist, that they actually move to the right place. So that was a little tricky. You can see also, like I'm attaching all those objects to the bones so that everything moves. So yeah, that's the easy part. So just attaching the head to the bone. Maybe a little bit. The small difficulty was that the neck has to bend, but that's an easy fix in the end. This was pretty fun, because these were some mechanical parts of the jetpack that had to move accordingly to the wing. So when the wing opens and closes, they have to move a certain way. And there you see it. Everything's also made with the bones and the rig, and that turned out pretty well. And worked from the get-go, as you see. So the one part twists around, or yeah, it's moving, and the other ones are moving accordingly. Rigging the wings was, first of all, it was easy to rig them. Like the first part of rigging was very easy, but in the end, all those feathers and everything, that was pretty hard, because I had to decide where exactly they go, how they don't intersect. So it was pretty tough, but as you see, so also there are a lot of bones. Every feather has its own bone, so I had to like change the visualization of the bones. Usually they are like this bone-shaped thick things. I changed them to sticks because then I couldn't see the feathers anymore. So that's how they look like right now. And yeah, so now I'm creating the bones and deciding which parts can move on their own and which can't. So that's what I'm trying to figure out there. So, and also I want to make them easy to control. So make one bone, an IK bone, that is actually opening and closing the whole wing set. That was very, very important. So as you see, I moved just one and they open and close. But there are still some problems here and there, so I had to figure out those. Luckily, it's just a wing thing, because the other robots and characters, they don't have those complex like rigs. So thankfully, I got that out of my system, and now I never have to do, hopefully, wings again. So I got that figured out. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now. So as you see, the bones are set up in the right places. I still have to move it a little bit. The tricky part is also if you already attached your objects to the rig, and then you adjust the rig, the model looks different, and some parts maybe overlap in the end. So you have to take care of that too. So that's also tricky. And also, yeah, the hose. The hose in the end, it should move. It should be attached. One end should be attached to another one. So that's what I'm trying to do here, to make it like a wire. But it didn't really work out so good. So I actually used bones for that, and a certain type of bones. It's called bendy bones, so that they actually, one bone is actually separated into smaller pieces, as you see here, so that they can bend in the end. So it's not like a stiff bone, it's a bendy bone. And it was also tricky because I never worked with those and I didn't know how to use them properly. So I watched in parallel some tutorials and tried to figure out how to attach one thing to the other. Plus the hose is an array of different objects. But yeah, in the end it worked. I'm not sure if I cut out that part where I almost gave up. But no, I think yeah, this worked in the end. You can also make the bones don't look like sticks. You can just take whatever shape and just assign it to the bone that it looks differently. That makes it sometimes easier. That's what I did at some points. But overall, yeah, I stayed, I think, with the sticks, except for one or two bones, I think. Yeah. Here I'm trying out if the bones really move as they should. So I think I'm now attaching all the objects to the bones. As you see, I'm moving the wings left and right. I'm opening them, and the objects move. But I still had to make sure that things don't overlap. So as you see here, sometimes they just move around like willy-nilly, and I don't know why. So yeah. Yeah, also create a little gizmo with an arrow just to know, okay, which one controls what. So as you see, yeah, it kind of already looks like I figured it out, but still I had to place the bones properly so that the wings actually don't overlap. And as you see, okay, they open and close. That's fine, but still there were some problems. So I had to actually position every bone at on a certain level, so that if they fold together, they just don't intersect. They have to actually pass each other, or at least like visually they shouldn't. If you don't see it in the final video, then it doesn't matter. But as I had some close-up shots of the wings, I unfortunately had to make sure that it perfectly aligns everything. So yeah. Also, I had to, again, because they were so close to each other, the feathers, I had to also change the model a little bit, because some parts were too thick, too big. They intersected, and it didn't have to be that big. So I decided to change them a little bit, so that they actually are not intersecting with other meshes. So yeah, okay, that looks actually good. So doing some test renders, how it looks with the materials also, and okay, so far it looks good. In the end, I still saw one or two points where it didn't really work properly, but in the end, nobody cared. Nobody told me, hey, this doesn't move right, or those two parts just go into each other. It doesn't really matter. It's just about the story and how it looks, how it makes you feel. So if there are always mistakes. If you see, even in Disney movies or Pixar movies, there are some mistakes that nobody saw. But as I said, nobody cares in the end. Yep. So yeah, I'm still refining some parts. Yeah, the mechanics work actually pretty good. Yeah, those are some parts that actually like went through some feathers, so I had to make them a little bit more narrow. And the whole rest is just aligning the feathers, aligning them so that they are set up perfectly, so that in the end it's also much easier to animate them, because later on I put them, they are like perfectly fine in the beginning, as you see maybe in the video. You can see it right here or there, not sure, here. If you haven't seen the video, they are damaged in the beginning, so it's important to set up the rig right, so that in the end I can just move them in different positions so they don't really align, but in the end I can still properly make them straight again, like in the end of the video. So there. So rigging, I found out in this process that rigging is way more important than I thought, actually. Yeah. So with the next project, I will definitely take even more time to rigging and make sure that everything works perfectly, so that animating in the end is much easier, because as you will see in the next 3 parts, just for animation, it was I had a lot of problems with the animations, and some parts were due to the rigging, that it didn't work properly. So first, when I'm 100% happy with the rig, I will then start animating the next one. Yeah, the hands were actually, they were not too bad. The elbow were also a little bit tricky, also like the knees. And these are the pistons that I mentioned in the beginning. I tried to also create bones for those, but it also did not work, and I spent hours just on this part. I cut out a big chunk of this thing because it's just like trying out over again the same thing, and it didn't work. So I also cheated in the end, like with the other pistons, with the hip pistons. Yeah, that's what I'm doing here. I think they are just stretching. I know it's not the proper way, but in the end, I think nobody noticed it. And if nobody noticed it, then did it really happen? I would say no. So as you see, as he moves his fingers down, one piston goes out and the other one stretches down. And when they go up, they just shorten again. The one at the thumb, because the thumb has a weird movement, it doesn't really work with a piston like that. So I cheated a lot with the thumb. And it's fortunately barely visible in the video that there is anything attached to the thumb. But as you see right now, it's just like, okay, it kind of rotates, but also not. And it was very weird to create this. But somehow I knew, at that point I knew, okay, this won't be visible that much, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I even created a little gizmo, as you see there, with a hand open and close. So I can move it up and down and the hand opens and closes. It was mostly just for test, just to see how a system like this would work. Because in the end, the movement of the hand was a little bit more complicated. It didn't just open and close. When he stomps on the ground, it moves a little differently. So yeah, I didn't really use this gizmo that much or at all. Yeah, the knees and the legs was still very tricky. Sometimes it's you have to decide what the idle pose is. So the main pose, the base pose basically. And first the legs were straight. That was the base pose, and it didn't work. So in the end, I decided to Blender froze. I decided to make the base pose with where the legs are a little bit more to the side, and then it worked out perfectly. Also with the feet and with the claws and his toes, I decided to go with the FK, so no IK controllers, that when he moves his foot up, that they still stay down. Sometimes if you have a close-up of a foot that's actually like rolling, that's very handy, and that's what the tutorial was that I was watching. That what it was for. But for my purposes, it was just too much, and it was too hard to handle because he's crawling on his knees, and the feet don't do anything. So in the end, I just got rid of them. I'm still trying to make like the perfect foot IK rig, and it's kind of working. Also, you see I'm adding a lot of bones, and here you see, okay, it's moving pretty good, and the toes are reacting perfectly. But it was just too much. It was way too complicated, and it was not necessary. And that's the thing. Before you create a rig, I would strongly recommend to think about, okay, what do I need from the rig? Do the toes have to roll perfectly from the ground? And in this case, the answer was no, definitely not. So that's why I chose to not do that like this. Yeah, the knees also, because the knee joint are separate parts. First I created separate bones for those, but it also did not work like super well. So as you see, I'm struggling to get them moving accordingly. Also, when you see those little spheres around the joints, like this for example, that indicates how much the joint can actually rotate. So that's these are the degrees, how much, as you see here, how much the leg can bend or can rotate to the side or to the front or to the back. So you can see the limit of the rotation of the joint. That's very handy. So you can limit it so the leg doesn't go up. So So it has a limit like a real body would have. Yeah, and that's it. I think. Yep, everything works. Little animation test, and that's it. So yeah, that was rigging. So the model is now finished, and it's rigged. It's not perfectly rigged, but we'll get to that in the animation videos. And yeah, next time will be part 5 of the animations. So I hope this will be maybe also entertaining. I'm not sure. Please comment if you want to know more about the process, what you like, what you don't like. Of course, please subscribe. That helps a lot. And share the videos, all the other videos on my channel, of course, if you like them. That would be cool. And I think we will see you next time with part 5 animation. Okay, bye.